Hi, I'm Jason Wilcox. I am the marketing director here at TCI Engineering, and this is our 72 Project C10. So a little backstory on the truck. We bought it in 2013 from a little used car dealer right down the street from the shop here, with the intention to design some new suspension for it, front and rear, and maybe do some autocross with it, maybe have it be a little bit of a parts runner truck. We spent about 2 years developing product, testing it. Meanwhile, the truck sat dormant. So one day I overheard a conversation about the truck being possibly put up for sale. I'll admit I almost lost my mind. I basically went to Sal and Ed and explained to them what a mistake that would be and that we needed to complete the project and get it out there and use it for marketing. Again, me being the marketing director, we needed to have the truck out there. So we basically had a discussion about the direction with the truck, and Sal and Ed gave me a pretty long leash to build the truck as I see fit. Within a week, I think they regretted that decision because I've kind of taken it a little bit more extreme than I think that it was originally planned for. So we had picked up a LQ4 and a 4L80E used out of a truck with 100,000 miles on it. The intention was just to rebuild it and, you know, basically make a 450, 500 horsepower deal. With me in charge of the deal now, I knew that was not going to last. For those that don't know, I've owned a few turbo cars, and turbo is kind of my thing, so I ended up talking to Reggie at Turbonetics. We dealt with him before with Scrape's Nova Wagon. We know their products very well, so it just made sense to work with those guys on putting together something for the truck. You know, we knew that then the stock bottom end was not going to be cohesive with that kind of power, so we got a hold of SCAT. Got a full rotating assembly from them with diamond pistons. Up the cubic inch, of course, we went to 418. You know, with that, the 317 factory heads were not going to be up to snuff, so AFR came to the rescue once again, so we're going to be running some of their new LS3 based Mongoose heads on it. You know, the new power potential of this setup is going to be far beyond, I think, what we would ever need. But that's a beautiful thing about turbo. I can turn it down when it's autocross time, you know, put it on wastegate spring, or put some E85 in it, turn the boost up and let it eat on a half-mile event or a standing mile event. So my main intent with the truck was to obviously showcase our suspension, but be able to market this thing in a way that I don't think anybody's ever been able to do with the C10. You know, there's plenty of gorgeous trucks out there that sit really low, that look good at a car show, but they may not go out to the autocross track or the road course and throw down. On the flip side, there's plenty of race trucks out there that do very well on the autocross, road course, even seen a few that do some drag racing and maybe even the standing mile. On the flip side of that, now these probably aren't show trucks, even though some of them are very nice. So what we'd like to do is make something a little more versatile. Not only will it, you know, hit the autocross, maybe some car shows here and there, but we'd also like to use it as a truck. You know, we'll put a hitch on it, we'll tow some of these other cars that are sitting around here behind me to the event, disconnect the trailer, and throw down. All right, so one of the things we really wanted to do with this truck is equal out the weight distribution. Pickups are notoriously light in the back, so we started toying with engine setback. One day I'm sitting in the cab and I'm sitting in a lawn chair, and Ed comes out here and is like, "What are you doing?" I don't know, I'm just trying to get a feel for how the steering wheel is going to be and whatnot. We got to talking about the engine setback on his Mustang, which is about 3 inches. And he says, "You know what I wish I would have done was, you know, basically cut out the dash and, you know, cut out the tunnel and move it back even farther." So next thing I know, he's grabbing a Sharpie and lining out where he's going to do that on the firewall. So what started out as maybe 3 or 4 inches of setback quickly turned into 5 or 6. The problem with going 5 or 6 now is that now the tunnel becomes an issue. And we were going to run a 4L80 in it, so the tunnel didn't have to be cut that much, but in order to get it to 5 or 6, we had to cut the tunnel. So pushed it back to 5 or 6, and we started realizing that being able to put the engine into the position that it's in was going to be really tough from the traditional standpoint of a hoist and a cherry picker. So we pushed it back a little bit more. Things actually started to look better the farther back that it went. From that standpoint, obviously the exhaust and the engine being that far into the driver compartment was a whole different ball of wax. So long story short, we ended up with it roughly at about 12 inches. And Ed, basically commented that we're going to have to make a subframe to where the whole engine and tranny comes in from underneath the truck. So that way installation is going to be somewhat easy. Problem with doing it at 12 inches is now the front accessory drive system is interfering with the front crossmember. So we pushed it back a little bit more. So currently it's sitting at 14 inches setback, and everything seems to be cohesive at that point. Again, except for, basically the transmission being an armrest inside the driver compartment. All right, so with the engine set back that far, obviously now the complication is, how we're going to set up the tunnel. The idea at this point is to do some sort of clamshell design that basically allows it to be removable fairly easily. So the first question everybody asks, why are the turbos in the back? There should be a lot of room under the hood. There's really not going to be. Basically the inner fender panels in the front and the way the radiator is set up, there's not going to be a whole lot of room under the hood. So we did the twin setup, and clearly they're behind the cab now. The bed floor has been raised about 5.5, 6 inches, so there's plenty of room to put them there. There's going to be a lot of other items that are going to sneak their way in there as well. Tranny cooler, engine cooler, air tanks, compressors, batteries. So we're going to run out of space very quickly underneath the bed as well. So I touched a little bit about what our goals are in the truck. Drag racing, road racing, that's commonplace for what we normally do, but something we haven't really gotten involved in is standing mile and half-mile events. The more research I did, I saw that not too many pickups are out there doing this kind of deal. One of which really caught my eye. It's a later model NBS body style GMC, very well-known truck. He went just under 200 mile an hour in the Texas Mile. And honestly, it really opened my eyes to what could be done. He's running an LS power plant in it, and it's a single turbo, probably making a little bit more power than we're going to make. But I think we're going to have an aerodynamic advantage. Long story short, we are planning to go 200 miles an hour with this truck in a standing mile. That's no easy feat. That means this thing's going to need to be able to go about 140, 145 in a quarter, and probably 165, 170 and a half to be able to make it run out the back door like that. This inherently has issues with the transmission that we've chosen, the 4L80. So we are looking at other options to maybe go to the 6L90. Having 4 forward gears, being able to go wide open throttle shift, possibly even into 5th, has its advantages. And a lot of people ask why we didn't do a manual tranny in this thing. Again, I've had a few turbo cars before, and they were all manual tranny. They're a handful, especially in an autocross setting. So with the automatic, it's going to be a little bit more predictable. Again, this thing is going to make a lot of power, even with the thing sitting on wastegate spring, which is probably going to be 7 or 8 psi. It should make easily 600 wheel horsepower. So trying to make that drivable, I think it'd be a little bit easier with the automatic. When we were originally talking to RideTech about how we were going to set up the shocks on this thing, the thought was we were just going to run their track quality triple adjustable coilovers on it. The more we talked, the more we realized that, okay, yeah, we are going to be doing some towing with this thing, so we're going to do a bag over. One thing led to another. They said, let's just do the triple adjustable shockwaves, which, may be counterproductive to what you may think, but we've been using their shocks on all of our race cars, and they work extremely well. The fact that they're, held up by air versus a spring really is going to have no effect on what we're going to do with this truck. So with the prospect of going to a bag setup on this thing, it really got my train of thought going a different direction. So I started looking at the cab and the bed and stepping the rear rails, doing a few things to kind of enhance what the bags are capable of doing. So I ended up doing a body drop on it. I dropped it down to 1/4 inch spacers. So now this thing's making all this power and we're going to have this much adjustability on the suspension, I knew that the stock frame rails weren't going to be up to what we're going to be doing it. So I ended up drawing out some boxing plates, and we used a plasma cutter out back and cut them out. I took our existing rear stepped piece and laid it on top of the stock rail and built a template off that. So I basically raised the rear frame rails roughly 6 inches. So the front of the truck, the suspension is basically as delivered. It's what anybody can buy. The rear is virtually the same thing, only difference is we've raised everything roughly 6 inches. That comes with complications. Obviously the cab's in the way, and the way the frame rails are designed now, the link bars are got to be a little bit of a contour on them to clear everything. But functionally they are the same geometry. So it's pretty much as is, it's just now we wanted it a little bit lower. The turbos actually are fairly small. They're 6262s with a 0.86 turbine housing. With that much cubic inch, that's actually a fairly small turbo. They're still capable of making 650, 700 each, but they should make boost fairly quickly. All right, so let's be honest, going 200 mile an hour in a pickup is kind of uncharted territory for many, including us. So we're kind of trying to take some measures to ensure that we're getting there safe and the least amount of aerodynamically challenged as we can. So the back of the truck, we're trying to build this diffuser into it. We plan on building a belly pan. We're also going to be building a splitter up front. And as you can see under the hood, what we've done is we've basically sectioned the back of the core support to fit the intercooler in place, and then laid the radiator over about 45 degrees. So the intention there is to basically take all the air captured from the core support, funnel it directly into the intercooler, into the radiator, and then the fan outlets will have tubes that go right up out through Jax Motorsports vents in the hood. So that way no air that's entering the engine compartment is going underneath the truck, or at least a very good percentage of it. So we'll try to keep the downforce to a maximum and resistance to a minimum. So since we stepped the frame rails, we also had to move the bed floor up to match. So we basically took about 6 inches out of every corner of the bed, including the tailgate. The idea is there to bring the bottom of it up so that way when it's folded down, it's still going to be level with the bottom of the bed floor. It also creates a situation where the air exiting the back of the truck is going to be a little bit higher, so we can build basically a double wing diffuser in there. The other benefit of raising that up is now the license plate is about in line with the height of the rear frame rail. So now we can put the hitch right through the back of the license plate, making it cleaner for whenever we do want to tow with it. So as you can see, we've got some pretty high hopes for the truck. We've got a long way to go to get there, but once this truck is done, you will see it, whether it be at a show, an event. We plan to get it out there and use it.